Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2016-2017 NFL Divisional Round Weekend Playoff Predictions. Well, as the playoffs started for the Fanatic, it was a very good week, mostly, for both my against the spread and straight-up picks. Against the spread, I went 500. So, look, I guess I'm happy that I didn't, bomb the record, but obviously for the two games that I picked the underdogs to cover, one lost by 20, which was Detroit to Seattle, and one lost by 18, which was Miami to Pittsburgh. So I will gladly take a lot of blame for that. I thought that those two teams, how they could have played, and I'll put it this way. First of all, this was the most lopsided wild card weekend for the NFL since 1981, and it was the largest amount of deficit, the 4 games combined, since the playoffs had been expanded from in 1990 with their current format. So this weekend was very underwhelming, especially for all the logical people. If you picked the favorites to win the game, you picked all the higher seeds, they played extremely well, and they made those 6 and 5 seeds just look, as bad as they should have. Except I really feel bad for Oakland. Their whole team throughout that game was ravaged with injuries. Again, Cook played, and he did okay. It's kind of amazing that if you think about it, Connor Cook's offense relit an offense that scored more points than any of the other wildcard teams that played over the weekend this weekend. So, Raider fans, you may take some solace in that, saying, hey, if our third-string quarterback played against any other playoff team that they played their offense, they would have beat him. But, so that might be a little solace, but again, losing to Houston, I know it's a tough loss, but with the number 1 defense, it's kind of expected. And I guess kudos to Brock Osweiler too. He played a solid game. He played well enough to win the game. Unfortunately for Houston, they have to now play the best team in the NFL, the New England Patriots, who are on a bye and rested, and that is never a good thing, especially for the opponent. With Seattle and Detroit, real quick, I'll put it this way: the Lions got hosed on a good amount of calls. The Paul Richardson face mask. With the touchdown, you had T.J. Jones getting armbarred by Shed, the corner in Seattle. That should have been called. Russell Wilson had a block in the back that should have been called. Doug Baldwin had a controversial catch that he could have caught. And all those plays would have definitely helped the Lions stay within, and that's why I kind of felt that if those calls would have been called correctly, I still may have been able to get that 8-point cover. However, at the end of the day, Seattle just, while they were playing, they had 161 yards on the ground, which was a tremendous thing for Thomas Rawls. And Matthew Stafford and the Lions, they had so many big drops, and they just couldn't make enough plays, even with all the controversial calls, to really give the Lions a chance to win. And, for when you have Seattle running the ball like that, Russell Wilson playing an efficient game like he typically does, 223 or 30, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, that's a pretty efficient game. And, for a quarterback, if he has that kind of running game and that defense, that's a good game that you want Russell Wilson playing, because it provides balance. So, and then with Miami, it was after, I think, the one drive where they, had gotten almost within a score, but then Matt Moore fumbled the ball, and in the very next drive after that, or like 2 drives after that, he goes right back down to about the 20-yard line, runs into J.J., he's running back, and they fumble again and give Pittsburgh the opportunity. And also, Pittsburgh's offense just was spectacular. The 3 killer bees, Ben, Brown, and Le'Veon, all did their thing and just made the Miami Dolphins defense look pitiful, especially the one drive where Le'Veon Bell ran it 10 straight times. They didn't throw the ball at all. Le'Veon Bell just kept running and running. He was the black and yellow Energizer Bunny. He just kept running, and he couldn't stop until he got to the end zone. So, I will take some blame for that. Even though I do think that if Tannehill played, I do think that maybe that 10-point cover would have been more likely, but I will say, just to follow the circumstances, I'll put a lot of blame myself on the Miami one, because I think that offense would have just been out there longer, would have to put up more points. I feel confident that if Detroit's calls would have gone their way, I think I'm going to get that 8-point cover. But at the end of the day, I can't positive or negative gripe on those. At least I got 500 with the 2 favorites that I did pick the cover. So, I'll be happy with that. And straight up, I am perfect so far in the postseason. 4-0. I am very happy with that. And keeps my playoff bracket completely clean. So now overall for the my overall record, of course, for the playoffs now against the spread, I am 500, and straight up I am undefeated so far. And now overall for the year, I am now 126, 118, and 8. If you combine my regular and postseason records, which equals 51.6%. And now I am 164, 94, and 2, which if you add those records up, that is 63.6%. So I'm improving my against the spread record basically stayed the same, and my straight up record improved by about 600 so points. So I'm getting up to about 64% hopefully by the end of the year. We'll see. But with that being said, if anybody watched my last video, since my bracket is still clean, I'm going to continue with my bracket that I chose last week before the playoffs started. So here are my straight up picks for this week's games. On Saturday, the first game, when the 3-seeded Seattle Seahawks go to the Georgia Dome to take on the number 2-seeded Atlanta Falcons, I'm taking the Atlanta Falcons. Then the second game, you're going to have the number 1-seeded New England Patriots hosting the number 4-seeded Houston Texans. I am taking the New England Patriots in that one. And then on Sunday, the number 3-seeded Pittsburgh Steelers go to the number 2-seeded Kansas City Chiefs. I am taking the Pittsburgh Steelers in that one. And then finally for the Sunday night game, the 4-seeded Green Bay Packers go to the number 1-seeded Dallas Cowboys. I am taking the Dallas Cowboys. And against the spread, I'm gonna stick with my picks with against the spread as well. So right now, Atlanta is a 4.5 point favorite. I like Atlanta minus 4.5, and Atlanta straight up. The Patriots-Texan game, the spread right now is 16 points. I'm going to ride with that and take New England minus 16, and New England straight up. And then for the Pittsburgh-Kansas City game, the line is Pittsburgh plus 2. So if I'm taking Pittsburgh straight up, obviously I'm going to take Pittsburgh plus 2 and Pittsburgh straight up. And finally, for the Green Bay-Dallas game, Dallas is a 4-point favorite in this game. I like Dallas minus 4 and Dallas straight up. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. Seattle at Atlanta. When I look at what the Seattle Seahawks did against the Detroit Lions, that was a positive sign for Seattle fans of seeing the old Seattle kind of team that Marshawn Lynch, Wilson, and that defense had for the last couple years, up until this past year, of kind of how they want to play football. Thomas Rawls broke Marshawn Lynch's postseason single-game record by rushing for 161 yards on 27 carries. Also, here's another fun little stat for the Seattle Seahawks fans. If they can run the ball effectively, or they just dedicate themselves to the run, they win games more often than not. In 12 games in which they've given their running back 25 or more carries, they are 10-2 in those games. So, and also I do want to congratulate Seattle with their win. They continued the third longest home game postseason game winning streak in NFL history with their 10th straight postseason home win. And Russell Wilson also gained his 5th career home victory to start an NFL career in the postseason. That only trails Kurt Warner for the most consecutive games won at home in the postseason to start a career. So, very impressive for Russell Wilson. He also accomplished acquiring the most career wins for regular and postseason combined to any NFL quarterback's first 5 years. And I believe he joins only Otto Graham and Joe Flacco as the only three QBs in NFL history to have won every game, or to have at least made the postseason and won a postseason game in each of their first 5 seasons. So congratulations to Russell Wilson and the Seahawks there. And also, for back-to-back years, the Seahawks have not allowed a touchdown to 2 NFC North teams. Last year, they only put up 9. Last year, the Vikings only put up 9 points of offense on the Seahawks defense. This year, Detroit only put up 6. So, kudos for Seattle's team with that. But I'm taking Atlanta here over Seattle because the Atlanta Falcons are at home and the Seahawks are on the road. If this game was in Seattle, I would feel better taking Seattle. I probably would take Seattle by a slight margin. But I do think Seattle could probably beat Atlanta in Seattle. But being in Atlanta, knowing how inconsistent the Seattle team has been on the road the entire year, only putting up 3 points against the Rams, only putting up 6 points against the Cardinals, only putting up 5 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, only putting 10 points up against Green Bay and Lambeau, only winning by 3 against the Niners in San Francisco. This Seattle team is just too inconsistent, both as a defense and an offense on the road, to trust it against a well-rested Atlanta team, led by first-team All-Pro quarterback and the number one quarterback on that list, Matt Ryan, probably the MVP of the league this year. They're number one offensive points per game and number two offense in yards per game. The Atlanta Falcons, though, kind of like Detroit, though, but Atlanta's kind of more of a more refined, more explosive Detroit. Their defense is not really that great. The offense and the defense kind of cancel each other out because they're 27th in defensively in points per game and 25th in yards per game. So the Seattle Seahawks offense is under pressure to, play to that matchup. However, just looking at how Seattle's offensive line has been, you have George Fant, you have Ifedi, you have Rudnowski, you have a very unexperienced and the least paid offensive line in the National Football League. So knowing what guys they have in Deion Jones, Beasley, they have Warlow still, I believe. They have some decent, pass rushers that can, cause Seattle's offensive line to shake and cause a little bit of havoc for Russell Wilson, which I think will be key. And just looking at what Earl Thomas has meant, being not out there for the Seattle secondary, I think of how Matt Ryan's been playing, and knowing what weapons he has on offense for Atlanta, knowing that he has Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Taylor Gabriel in the third, and then you have Austin Hooper, who probably will be able to play. He's dealing with a little bit of an injury right now, but he should be able to play. And then you got Coleman and Freeman out of the backfield, along with a solid offensive line, a much better offensive line than what Seattle has. I just think Atlanta, this is their biggest moment since 2012, and maybe their biggest moment since 2003, to show that they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Again, personally, I am rooting for Seattle because I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan, but I'm going to be objective here and take the Falcons because I do not trust them. All right, I don't trust Seattle on the road. Their offense has been very porous, to be kind, and just knowing what Atlanta has been at that dome, knowing what kind of confidence Matt Ryan has shown, hopefully he'll be able to step up and make a big statement win for that Falcons franchise and guide them to their first NFC title game since 2012 and maybe the first NFC title game victory since 1998. And when you look at the stats, I think one interesting thing is shout out to Brother Pody. He provided me with a stat. Russell Wilson and his offense, when the Legion of Boom gives up 25 or more points, he's 3-16 in those 19 games. Atlanta only scored under 24 points once, and that was against Philadelphia. But their lowest point total the whole year was 20. Besides that, was 24. One of those games was against Seattle back in week 5 or 6 when Julio Jones got robbed of a pass interference call that should have been called on Richard Sherman. But I think with that now being at home and that motivation's there, I think their offense is going to be too high-powered. I think Atlanta's offensive line can hold up enough, and I don't think their Seattle secondary on the outside besides Sherman. I think Julio Jones can do enough to have Sherman play a below-average game to his standards, and I think Sanu and Gabriel can do enough with the safeties that they're playing with to make plays for the Atlanta Falcons to win this game. This should be a phenomenal game. I'm excited about it, but I'm taking Atlanta here. Too much offensive firepower. Don't trust Seattle on the road. Don't trust that Seattle offensive line at all. And for Matt Ryan, I think for the first time in a while, or just for the first time in his career, when the pressure in the playoffs has come up, he will step up to the occasion, knowing that this team has a legitimate chance to make the Super Bowl. So that's all I get. Atlanta minus 4.5 and Atlanta straight up. Next one, Patriots over Texans. This is the dud of the weekend. Houston got a win over a third-string quarterback. Bruce Irvin went out in the game. Michael Crabtree went out in part of the game. Rodney Hudson went down for a few plays. They didn't have Donald Penn. They just basically played a show of the Raiders. And the Texans got lucky by having their number one defense out there smother the entire Oakland offense. And you can tell how bad the Oakland defense is because of the QBR stat. Brock Osweiler had his 2 highest QBRs of his season against the Raider defense. Brock Osweiler's really been trash ever since then. And now if you look at it, this is where, for Houston, remember, they're coming in this game after losing the last time in New England, Week 3, 27-0 against Jacoby Brissett, the third-round quarterback rookie from NC State. Now, do I think Houston will get shut out? No. But do I think that Tom Brady will just exponentially improve the entire New England offense? Yes. And this is why this is not even going to be a contest. New England and Houston have played each other the last 2 times under Bill O'Brien. They've been outscored 54-6. So if you do the math, that's 27-3 average the last couple games under Bill O'Brien. Clowney won't be able to make as much havoc. I think New England has too many offensive weapons for Houston to deal with, and just trusting Brock Osweiler against the New England defense, which is ranked number 1 overall in terms of scoring, that's too much of a challenge to say that Houston even puts up enough of a fight to cover the 16 points they're given. Largest home favorite for a playoff game since 1998 against Minnesota. Should be an interesting game, but again, I'm taking New England minus 16. Too talented. Complete mismatch, and I don't trust the Belichick disciples to outsmart the Belichick. So that's why I like New England minus 16 and New England straight up. Next game, Steelers over Chiefs. The Pittsburgh Steelers at jump were just rolling through the Dolphins. Antonio Brown caught his first postseason touchdown, and he caught his first ever touchdown off a screen pass, which I was very happy for him. And also Pittsburgh, Big Ben Roethlisberger is the first NFL quarterback in postseason history to have 2 50-plus yard touchdowns in the first quarter of a postseason game ever. And also Le'Veon Bell broke the single-game postseason record for rushing yards of 165 or 167 rushing yards against the Miami Dolphins defense. That was very Ajayi-like for Pittsburgh. It must have felt very good for Pittsburgh fans after how bad Ajayi tore him up in Miami earlier in the year, Week 6. Also, Pittsburgh has 35 postseason wins, which is the most in NFL history. Their win broke the tie with the Dallas Cowboys, who can re-tie it if they lose and they win against Green Bay this Sunday. They're playing a Kansas City team that, again, I've been extremely supportive of. When you look at him, Tyreek Hill has been an absolute stud, unanimous All-Pro for the punt returner, but he's the first Chief in NFL history, and I believe to have multiple touchdowns in 3 different ways. He had 3 kick or punt return touchdowns, 6 receiving touchdowns, and 3 rushing touchdowns. KC also, again, 23-5. Since Week 7 of last year, the first team they beat during that span was Pittsburgh. And I know Kansas City, they have a huge revenge factor on their mind because of what happened in Pittsburgh. I think Week 4, Pittsburgh had just got blown up by Philadelphia, 34-3. The very next week, Kansas City goes into Pittsburgh, and they end up losing 42-14. So Kansas City is that motivation, knowing that the Steelers have to now go into Arrowhead, one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL to play in, and one of the toughest to play in. While Pittsburgh has the advantage of the last time they played the Kansas City Chiefs, they had Landry Jones, the quarterback. I don't know if Landry Jones would have made up 11 points, but I do know that game will be a lot closer in Kansas City now with Big Ben, most likely about 95% healthy. He did have that ankle injury, but now I just heard he is out of that walking boot, so that's a huge plus for the Steelers. And I'm just going to take Pittsburgh, and I know Andy Reid, the whole adage. Andy Reid, this is going to be a really tough pick because Andy Reid, again, best record in NFL history after a bye. Regular and postseason combined, he is 19-3 after a bye, and this is the first time the Chiefs have had a bye, I believe, since 2003. So, I look at this game and say, when you look at the defenses, Kansas City has the better defense. Kansas City has the better wide receiving core if you take in Antonio Brown. However, when you look at some other sides of the ball, Pittsburgh's offensive line or Kansas City's, you're going to take Pittsburgh's offensive line and Kansas City's running game compared to Le'Veon Bell and his running game. You're going to take the Pittsburgh running game in that aspect as well. So it comes down to the quarterbacks. And as much as I respect Alex Smith has been a very consistent game manager throughout his time in Kansas City and San Francisco over the last 5-6 years. He's one of the very few quarterbacks that's paid off his $68 million contract extension he signed a couple years ago. I am just going to have to go with Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers because I trust Big Ben to make enough plays and to make enough big plays to provide the Steelers to win this game in a close, interesting possible shootout, interesting possible defensive game. Because when Alex Smith is under pressure, most of the time, or when he needs to make a big play, more times than not, he is not able to capitalize. And I think, again, if you trusted Ben, Bell, and Brown with that same instance, the Steelers have a higher percentage of chance of making those big plays to win compared to Kansas City, even in Arrowhead. I would not be surprised if Kansas City wins this game, and I'm actually personally rooting for them. But I'm going to take Pittsburgh here. I'm going to go with the more experienced quarterback, the better offensive line, the better running game, and I just think Alex Smith, maybe as efficient as he'll be, he won't take enough chances and make enough big plays to win the game for Kansas City. Should be a great game, but again, that's why I'm taking Pittsburgh +2 and Pittsburgh straight up. And finally, Cowboys over Green Bay. I'm taking Dallas here because, first of all, I trust that Dallas offensive line to play very well against the Green Bay defense that's, again, caught fire. They only allowed 13 points to the Giants, but again, this is the sixth time in the last 7 games the Giants have scored under 20 points. But I'm going to take Dallas here because I trust Dak Prescott. I trust Ezekiel Elliott to be able to control the clock against the Green Bay defense, just like he did back in Week 5 against Green Bay. And I think with Aaron Rodgers, as well as he will play, and again, he's been the hottest quarterback in the NFL, 22 touchdowns over the last 8 weeks, 19 touchdowns, no interceptions during this 7-game winning streak. Not having Jordy Nelson is huge because that's their number one target. I know they're going to probably promote Geronimo Allison to the number 3 wide receiver area. But I'm going to take Dallas here. I think Dallas' defense, they can make enough plays. And I think if you look at the Giants' offense compared to the Dallas offense, Dallas' offensive line is much better. Dak has made better decisions. Dak can make more throws. And Dak has more of an arsenal of targets around him compared to what the Giants have. Should be a phenomenal game, but I think at the end of the day, the Green Bay defense will let Aaron Rodgers just down one more time. And Dak will provide one more big play to win the game instead of Rodgers losing it. So those are my thoughts on each 4 of the divisional round games for this weekend. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. And please check out other NFL YouTube prognosticators. Check out Keith Bailey. Check out Brother Poet. Check out Hatbox. Check out Geo Knows. Check out Bridgewater's Finest. Check out the Waterboy Report and Luca. And I also want to shout out a guy that commented on my videos last week, Sports Fan Entertainment. Anybody that hasn't watched this stuff, please check his stuff out. He is a really good NFL guy. Has a lot of great thoughts on the games. Has a lot of great thoughts on the futures of certain teams. A lot of great thoughts on the draft. Check him out. Shout out to him, and thank you for commenting. And hopefully next year for your straight up and against the spread records. Maybe more so straight up because you probably could beat me next year against the spread. Hopefully I do better. But hopefully you'll do better. So those are my thoughts and picks and comments for this week. So like, comment, rate, subscribe. And get a couple more shout outs. Shout out to Andrew Warren and shout out to Hatbox. And until next week for the conference championships picks, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Till then, so long.